This debt, this destruction.
Global news impacts us.
We have to change the way we live.
This is why we need independent media.
Hey everyone, this is Kit Cabela with Hard Lens Media. That's right, I'm hosting the Friday show solo, so that means you get 100% Kit Cabela. And today's episode is going to be dedicated to don't hero worship your politicians. Don't expect much from your heroes. Everyone, it's up to us to fight for that better future, because the people who we expect to lead us, or the people that we admire, are human. They're flawed, just like the rest of us. They make mistakes, and you know what? We, as people, cannot afford to put anyone on top of a pillar. But first and foremost, I got a couple announcements to say. First, on next week, Monday's show, we have an announcement. If you're a Patreon supporter, you'll know the big news, but it'll be some slight changes with how we run Hard Lens Media, but nonetheless, we're going to still be doing our show. We are working on a few other projects as well that we got to keep hush-hush, but at this point in time, I'm really excited about all the opportunities that we are working here at the studio. And if you heard any background noise, we are still doing the construction work, but every day we're getting better, and it's because of you guys, our viewers and subscribers. Plus, tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Chicago Corner will be live, so be sure to tune in and check out that show. We're trying to get it past 1,000 subscribers so it can contribute to the 99 Perspective Studio. And speaking of which, if you want to help us out here at the 99 Perspective Studio, we are asking for support through Patreon. That link is in the description box below. You'll be helping out build out this community center and also build our radio station that we're trying to open out to the people of the city of Chicago. So if they want to have a radio program or do their own YouTube show, they can use our studio space here at the 99 Perspectives studio. And we're really excited with all the work that we are doing here. And again, it's because you guys are Patreon supporters and our viewers and subscribers that we're able to do anything right now. And speaking of which, I want to acknowledge our wonderful Patreon supporters. Shout out to the Whitefell DM, Deanna Petrelli, Monica Kozel, Michael Lord, Denver Attaway, Stephen Kane, Isabel, Travis A. Hilton, Jackie Pura, Brandon Adams, Dan Van Heck, Dwayne Gordon, Alexandra Maria, Sam Wise, Jay Morganson, Joshua Pepe, Kate, Rena Q, Arto Javier Marlis, Maria Spry, Robert Sperry, Murmur, Laura, Baba Ganoush, Marks Friedman, Brian Fauci, Jenny, Genera Christ 77, Tony C, Dana Fairbanks, MD, Stephen T, Sylvia Saucedo, Eb Crash, 6, I don't know who you are, but you go by the number 6, Martha Marsh, Jose Garcia, Crone of Anarchy, Catherine Rose Kaditz, Jeff, Brian Rossreich, Boris Petrov, and that's it for now. We'll be reading the rest next week. And again, thank you so much to all of our Patreon supporters, because again, without all of you, we would not exist. Real quick, to our viewing audience, thank you so much for joining us. We do appreciate all the support that we are getting here for Hard Lens Media. We are working on the volume as well, so please give a thumbs up in the chat before we get started if the volume is, or do we need to up anything? Otherwise, thank you all so much for joining us. By the way, Daniel does send his best, but now let's get started with our main story. So, let's talk about Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. So, yesterday, she did something. She voted on the House floor. She didn't vote no. She didn't vote yes. She voted present for the Iron Dome. So if we can, let's pull up this video of what's happening here. And again, it's a 2-minute video. We'll be playing it. Again, there's no audio in it, but if you listen closely or look in the far corner area, you'll be noticing that Nancy Mama Bear Pelosi is talking down to AOC, waving her hands about. AOC is being consulted. Something is going on. So I want to play that video if we can, just so that people see like the movement that's happening there. And while we're playing that video, I want to read out AOC's tweet. No need to pull up her tweet, but I do have it here. You can check it out in the show notes in the description box below. But it's a note to the New York 14th District constituents from Congresswoman Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez. She writes out, yesterday the House called to the floor a rushed $1 billion supplemental military funding bill for Israel's Iron Dome defense. I want to be clear with our community that I'm opposed to this bill, but ultimately cast a present vote. My job as your representative is to first and foremost serve with transparency and remain accountable to you, the people of New York's 14th Congressional District. Sounds good on paper. All right, sounds interesting. And again, please notice Mama Bear Nancy is starting to talk down. She's wagging her finger. First, let me begin with why I believe this bill should have been opposed, contrary to popular narrative. This bill is not for U.S. funding of the Iron Dome, as opposing it would not defund U.S. financing of the system in any way, shape, or form. And again, we're getting a word salad here. Since 2011, the U.S. has provided $1.7 billion for the Iron Dome and is already financially committed to continuing these funds through 2028. So somehow we got the money for Israel's Iron Dome, but we can't do Medicare for all. Again, AOC, what is the excuse? You voted present, but why aren't you really pushing back against it? And again, if you look in that video right there, there seems to be a lot of back and forth between Mama Bear and her baby bear cub. Continuing on, this bill adds an additional $1 billion in funding in 1 year to the system alone. For context, this is an amount in 1 year that approaches all the funding to the system we provided over the last decade. And this is in addition to the $3 billion authorized earlier this year in other forms of military funding to the Israeli government. I believe strongly that Congress should take greater scrutiny with all military funding across the world. I also believe that for far too long, the U.S. has handed unconditional aid to the Israeli government while doing nothing to address or raise the present human rights abuses against the Palestinian people, and that this imbalance of power must be centered in any honest conversation about Israel and Palestine. In addition to the many other governments we militarily fund with a pattern of human rights abuses, such as Saudi Arabia, Colombia, and related amendments I introduced last week as well. So again, the rest of this document, this letter, is a word salad, but that doesn't explain why she voted present. So the thing is, she's saying that she's deeply sorry. She's hurt by this. She's saddened by her actions, but it doesn't answer the fundamental question about the show that we saw. And again, I have an interesting article again from RT America with AOC, where she's doing this crocodile tear kind of performance. And we've seen this kind of performance before from AOC. If we can, let's go ahead and pull up that article from RT America. Shh, don't tell Rachel Maddow. Don't tell any of the cul-de-sac progressives that we're using RT America. I know it's so shocking that we're using something that's outside the norm. But at this point in time, let's really address what's wrong with AOC. So, after changing her vote from no to a non-committal present at the last moment, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez was seen crying as the House passed funding for Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system. The House passed a $1 billion bill on Thursday, replenished Israel's Iron Dome missile defense system, depleted after a week of relentless rocket attacks from Palestinian militants this summer. The funding was originally included in a broader spending bill, but was voted on separately after progressives, including AOC, threatened to scupper the legislation on Tuesday if it remained included. Now, the funding bill was passed by 420 votes, 420. I love that number, but God, I hate that it's used in this point. To 9, with 2 representatives voting present. Despite her earlier opposition, Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez switched her vote from no to present at the final moment. So what happened? The New York Congresswoman was then seen weeping on the House floor and being consoled by fellow Representative Pramila Jayapal, who voted to arm Israel. Again, also, I just want to be very clear that a lot of other progressives voted for this bill as well. See, the thing is, when you are in the Democratic Party, you get corrupted, especially if you're a progressive. So we've seen this performance from AOC not too long ago, especially when Trump was president, where she was crying in front of a parking lot. Yeah, we remember those pictures. AOC could have voted no, but she chose to vote present. Now, that's her opinion. That's something she did, and now she's trying to quickly cover it up because people are calling her out for her hypocrisy. Let's be very clear with what's happening in Israel. It is an apartheid government where there's massive amounts of human rights abuses that are happening there. And AOC, when she first got elected, promised to bring in a ruckus, promised to challenge the political system. But as the days and weeks and months and years went by, we saw her change very quickly to being very supportive to the Democratic establishment, the Democratic Party, posting out feel-good tweets, and saying positive things about Speaker of the House Nancy Pelosi. Mind you, again, the reason why Nancy Pelosi is Speaker of the House is because the 15 congressmen and women who were on the Force to Vote petition chose not to basically force to vote for Medicare for all. And remember, it's the same AOC that said Biden and his administration are exceeding expectations and that she would give him and his administration an A. We cannot afford to rely on our politicians. When we rely on our politicians, when we rely on people that we agree with or that we're really supportive of, we get blinded by the fact that they are people. Now, I don't know what was going on that floor. Again, with that video that we did see, there's no audio to it. But again, the very fact that in that corner area, you're seeing Ice Cream Nancy in her little pink blouse. If we just pull that video up, we can play it again. There's no audio to it. We do apologize for that inconvenience. But again, as you're seeing it there, there's Ice Cream Nancy with her pink little blouse. And there she is talking down to AOC. And AOC quickly changes that no vote to a present. And then we see that performance art of crying. Progressives in the House. You promised to bring the ruckus, but when you let this decade-old monster known as Nancy, who refuses to fight for the American people, when you let her browbeat you like this, how are you supposed to inspire the rest of the progressive voting base to turn out to vote for you guys if you're not going to stand up to somebody like Nancy? Something was going on in that conversation. Maybe it's all one big act. Maybe it's one big cartoon show and we're all just the suckers there watching it. Stop hero worshiping these politicians. Stop hero worshiping people that you respect on Twitter. All right? Because they're human beings. They're people. You want to know how we can really bring in the ruckus? It's time to start talking about building an infrastructure for a third party. Talking about building an infrastructure towards a true general strike. Now more than ever, it's up to us to lead. And when the people lead, that's when real leaders will follow. No more of this BS. No more of this performance art. And so I think a final note to this, especially to the vote blue, no matter who community, how are you going to inspire voters to turn out in the midterms or either that in the 2024 presidential election cycle? What are you going to do? What kind of fear propaganda are you going to feed us that we haven't heard already? Because as far as I'm concerned, what I'm seeing before us is weakness to the first degree. And I'm tired of being disappointed. It's time for us to move on and break away from the Democratic establishment. Relying on Washington, D.C. is a fool's hope. And I hope all of us see it now. That's why we have to fight for this better future, because our politicians and our lawmakers will not do it for us. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do, I want to just first acknowledge everyone here that's watching us here on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. Again, we're live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time. Plus, we will also be having Chicago Corner live today on the Chicago Corner YouTube channel at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time. I also want everyone to give a huge shout out to FaZe, who was basically here early this morning setting up the studio. Seriously, everyone, Patreon supporters, not only are you helping us take care of our studio, but you're also helping us take care of FaZe and all his work that he's doing here too. So everyone that's in the chat, I'm seeing 119 people. Can I see 119 thumbs up for the work that FaZe and Daniel are working on? Because, you know, let's face it, all this here that you're seeing, because right now you're just seeing the screen, and then when we do end the show, when we start the show, you're just seeing a small part of the studio. There's a lot more space here that we're working on, and those two individuals have really did a lot. So give a shout out to FaZe and Daniel for all the work they've done. I also want to acknowledge a YouTube super chat that we got from Mahmoud Merhadi, $5. Thank you so much for that YouTube super chat. You didn't send us, you didn't say anything, but we do thank you for that support. Do we have anything on Odyssey or Rockfin? All right, I'm getting the nose on that as well. All right, so with that being said, we're going to move on now to another story. And this one, you know, I first want to give a shout out to the Convo Couch that did a fantastic analysis yesterday and today in regards towards previous statements that was said by Representative or former Representative Tulsi Gabbard. To be very clear here, Heartlands Media in the past have done a lot of stories about Tulsi Gabbard, especially during the presidential election cycle of 2020. And we wouldn't be talking about Tulsi Gabbard were she not smeared by corporate media, how they called her a third-party asset, how they called her a Republican plant, how they called her a Russian asset, a Syrian asset, and all these other things, and how she was blocked from being on the debate stage, and so much more. But let's face it, Tulsi Gabbard, like everyone else, is human. And some of her Twitter takes have been, well, very hawkish and really questionable at this point in time. And I want to pull this tweet up from Jimmy Dore, who also retweeted Ron Placone. If we can, let's pull this up. Jimmy Dore, same, all heartbreakers for me. And if we scroll down, I want to read Ron Placone's tweet right there. I was wrong about Tulsi Gabbard. I was wrong about Bernie, the squad, AOC. I was wrong to think our electoral system could somehow be the solution. I know it will never be. Hashtag general strike. And before we start with the rest of the story, look, at this point in time, we need to talk about really building the true infrastructure for a general strike. Shout out to the Fred Hampton leftists that have been doing continuous videos and conferences and conversations about the needs and the necessity of doing a true general strike. I think this is our last best hope, because relying on politicians, both elected and former, to be our heroes or people that we respect, again, is a fool's errand. So first, let's pull up this video from Tulsi Gabbard where she was on Tucker Carlson's show. I find it questionable, and again, shout out again to the Convo Couch, where they really call out Tulsi Gabbard for defending this drone strike, and really, it just seems different on how she's presenting her thoughts on regime change war. So let's go ahead and play this video in its entirety.
Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie, I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life, you get caught, and nothing happens to you? What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible.
Yeah. Congressman, thanks so much for coming on. So you get to lie, I mean, this will not shock you because you've seen it so much, but you get to lie about the loss of human life, you get caught, and nothing happens to you? What kind of system is that?
I mean, this kind of accountability is critical. I want to point out first that anytime there are civilian casualties in war, it is tragic and terrible. Yeah. War is a terrible thing, and I think it's important for the American people to understand that Islamist jihadists are continuing to wage war against us. And the Islamist ideology, not the same as the religion of Islam, but this Islamist ideology, which is a political ideology that inspired the terrorist attacks on our country on 9/11, is the greatest threat that we're facing right now in this country and the world. It is the foundation of governance of so-called Islamic countries like Turkey and Iran and Saudi Arabia and Pakistan. And it's what's behind the discriminatory policies that they have in these countries against Christians, Hindus, Buddhists, atheists, and others. So as long as these Islamist jihadists are waging war against us, we have to work to defeat them militarily and ideologically. And militarily, we have two choices in how we do that. Number one, we can continue to invade and occupy and nation-build in countries around the world, just as we did in Afghanistan, at great cost. Number two, we can take a targeted approach using airstrikes, using our special forces to go in and go after these terrorist cells. The reality is that the cost to the American people, the cost to our troops, the cost to civilians will be far less if we take this very targeted approach to go after these jihadist terrorist cells than if we continue making the very same mistakes that we saw in Afghanistan and other parts of the world of invasion, occupation, and nation building.
All right, so I think I'm going to quote Craig Jadula, also known as Pasta from Convo Couch.
Congressman, thanks so much.
Wait, can we pause that video? All right. So first, I want to just say this. It's the look of Tucker Carlson's face of shock, like, oh, I thought you were going to be against this, because let's face it, any kind of invasion tactic, because we saw the horrible example of the 20-year waste in Afghanistan, is a fool's idea. And also relying on drones as another method, too, on combating. You know, I don't know if anyone's been aware of this, especially Tulsi Gabbard. She should know about this. She should know about this, and that is that there have been numerous incidents where, again, a lot of these drone pilots targeted the wrong locations. They shot at civilians, innocent men and women and children. And the thing is, when we bomb people, we get people angry at us. They bomb us. We get angry. We bomb them right back. It's a continuous cycle of hate. And that drone strike killed civilians. They weren't terrorists. They weren't part of any kind of cabal or evil organization. They were innocent civilians. A U.S. drone did that. And of course, the military-industrial complex will defend its actions. And again, Tulsi Gabbard trying to sugarcoat this. I understand her mindset. She does serve in the Hawaii National Guard. I understand her mindset, but she's wrong about this. Every time we get involved in any country overseas, especially when we try to enforce our policy or, again, bring our war on terrorism to any other country, we cause more trouble. We cause more problems. And Tulsi Gabbard is wrong on this. Look, I really liked her campaign in the 2020 election cycle. I really felt that she was being smeared. But when it comes down to this policy, now again, she's a private citizen. She's not a congresswoman. She's not in office right now. But she should know better because she was the one who was talking about ending regime change wars, ending the military-industrial complex. But her actions, again, and her statements right here on Tucker Carlson's show are extremely questionable. These policies have been continued on by Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. And she has talked about how she learned firsthand why these regime change wars were bad when she was serving in Iraq. There's no defense for continuous drone strikes. There's no defense for it at all. And we've seen videos and stories and heard many statements from many whistleblowers who were drone pilots, who talked about, again, the abuse of power and crimes that were committed. I don't know what Tulsi Gabbard's on, but she needs to get her mind out of 2002, 2003. It's 2021. And with the aftermath of our evacuation from Afghanistan, it's clear that nothing in regards to military foreign policy, especially from the United States, will solve anything. Not in Iraq, not in Afghanistan, not in Libya, not in Syria, not in Yemen, not anywhere. But hold on, it gets a little worse. It gets a little worse. So let's pull this tweet up from Tulsi Gabbard. Again, mind you, I want to remind everyone that she did endorse Biden, but I don't know what she's talking about in this tweet right here, especially with what we're seeing with the nightmare south of the border. I was hoping that that Biden would keep his promise to try and unite our country, but instead this administration has used race and identity politics to divide us. Our freedom of speech and civil liberties are under assault. Inflation is going through the roof, and now we've got open borders. Again, I just want to remind Tulsi Gabbard that all this has been continued on by Democratic and Republican presidential administrations. Biden is just playing the same song. It's not Biden. This has been ongoing from Reagan all the way up to Biden. From Reagan, Bush Sr., Bill Clinton, Bush Jr., Barack Obama, Donald Trump, and Biden. And mind you, this humanitarian crisis that's south of the border, be they refugees from Haiti, from Central America, or South America, it's because of the uncontrollable threat of climate change. It's because of regime change wars that are happening in the Western Hemisphere. It's because of ridiculous war on drugs. It's because of coups. It's because of the U.S. interfering in other countries, especially in South America, Central America. And people are fleeing these areas because, again, they're becoming hostile. And they come to this country and they get treated like animals. So Tulsi Gabbard needs to get it clear that, number one, the Biden administration is continuing on the same policies. We even covered this on the show before, where the Biden administration is continuing on Donald Trump's policies. So let's play this first video. We're just going to play the first 3 minutes. We'll pause it, and we'll play the rest of it. Let's go ahead and play this video.
Let's bring in former Hawaii Democratic Congresswoman, former presidential candidate, and Army reservist, Tulsi Gabbard. She's just back from deployment in Africa to go after al-Qaeda affiliated jihadists there. Congresswoman, thanks for joining us.
Hey, Brett.
I want to talk about Afghanistan, foreign policy, and counterterrorism, but I want to start on the issue of immigration that's pressing now in the news. You tweeted out this today. You said the Biden-Harris open door policy has been a disaster. It needs to end now. The main beneficiaries of open borders are the gangs, cartels, and human traffickers. The Trump policy of having people wait on the other side of the border worked and needs to be reinstated. Your thoughts about what's happening in Del Rio and how the administration is handling it?
It is an utter disaster and failure, and it's directly attributed to the Biden-Harris administration's open border policy. This is not only a humanitarian crisis, it is a national security crisis, and it's something I've said all along, which is that if we do not secure our borders, then we can't have a secure nation. There are so many issues that have happened under this administration that have led to this point, and their continued failure of leadership is exacerbating the crisis that we're seeing play out before our very eyes.
But do you think, having been in Congress, that Congress can deal with this issue?
Congress has proven, unfortunately, to put partisan politics ahead of actually passing real necessary immigration policy reform. But what we've seen under the last several months under this administration, unfortunately, and Joe Biden is a friend, I hold no malice towards him, but I have to say that the policies and decisions that have been made via executive order by the White House have led to this open border policy with thousands, tens of thousands of people coming and attempting to and sometimes successfully streaming across the border.
And you think that's a national security threat as well?
It absolutely is. How can you say that it's not when we have no idea who is coming across the border? And once again, how can we ensure safety and security for the American people when we don't have a secure border?
All right, the counterterrorism fight, the president talking
pause
about.
Right there. Pause right there for 1 second. Look, the United States is still, again, the Biden-Harris administration are continuing on Donald Trump's policies south of the border. Again, those cages, all those facilities were started under the Obama-Biden administration as well. So the very fact that Tulsi Gabbard is saying this, she's just using a talking point, I guess maybe to sound smart or to make herself stand out. But let's be very clear. We've seen the videos, we've seen the photos of the Haitian people of those Haitian refugees being whipped, round up by, again, law enforcement riding horses, where we saw drone footage of a lot of those Haitian refugees underneath the bridges. There is a real humanitarian crisis. And it's just not like everyone just woke up one day and decided to come to the United States. It's because of climate change and U.S. policy, especially in regards to regime change wars and coups, that's causing people to migrate to the United States. This ridiculous war on drugs that's causing these cartels to terrorize communities in Central and South America. So people are escaping with their families to look for a better life. And so what is their reward when they make this arduous, dangerous march towards the United States? They get rounded up, treated like cattle, get deported, or far, far worse. Now, Tulsi should know better on this. She served in Congress. She ran what I felt was a very interesting campaign, but apparently she seems to have forgotten her message, or she's making a feel in the water about maybe running again for politics. But let's be clear here. Those refugees, be they from Haiti or Central America or South America, are human beings. And they were put in an unfortunate situation because of the United States policies and also the ever-growing threat of climate change. Let's play the rest of this video.
How it's evolving, how it's going to change. Take a listen.
We'll meet terrorist threats that arise today and in the future with a full range of tools available to us. We're better equipped to detect and prevent terrorist threats, and we are more resilient in our ability to repel them and to respond.
There are a lot of people, Congresswoman, who say what happened in Afghanistan and what is happening now and how we handled it has really opened the door for more terrorists. You've just come back from Africa, which is also a hotbed of radical jihadists.
Can we pause right there for real quick? Just a simple, short question. What the hell are we doing in Africa? What are the United States Special Forces or any kind of military outfit doing in Africa right now? Now, again, saying that's a hotbed for terrorism, no matter where we go, we seem to be causing more trouble than good. We seem to be causing more pain and suffering. Now, I understand Tulsi Gabbard recently came back from a deployment over there on the continent of Africa, where specifically, again, it's anyone's guess, but let's be very clear here. We have no business anywhere right now. We shouldn't be wasting countless treasury on regime change wars or any kind of military expeditions. We saw 20 years of waste in Afghanistan, $2 trillion. And to quote my colleague Daniel, look, there's still an interest. So it's probably maybe $6 trillion or $8 trillion. Why don't we start taking care of ourselves? I remember Tulsi Gabbard talking about this and saying that there's going to be a hotbed of more terrorists and that we're creating an open door for terrorism. The U.S. war on terrorism created more problems. We created more terrorists. Our actions, our invasions, from Afghanistan to the ridiculous war in Iraq with weapons of mass destruction. Mind you, you would think that would be a pretty big deal. Where's the WMDs? Oh, that's right. It was one big lie. So again, this talking point about how we got to secure the border. We made this problem. The American government, let's be very clear, our elected officials made this problem. Because remember, they're bought and owned by big fossil fuel industries that profit off of taking oil from other countries, and also, again, the military-industrial complex as well. Let's play the rest of this video.
Well, as you know, Brett, in both East and West Africa, there is a surge of these jihadist terrorists. Al-Qaeda, ISIS, and affiliated groups are increasing in their strength. The withdrawal from Afghanistan is something that I agreed with, but unfortunately, the way that this administration executed that withdrawal has been an utter and abject disaster, which is continuing to play out as we speak. For those who say, and we should continue to monitor Afghanistan to make sure that there are no Al-Qaeda and ISIS strongholds that are allowed to start to take root. If we're seeing that that's starting to happen, then we need to go and take them out. But we should not be under the illusion that...
Pause it there. Take them out. What have we... There's nothing more we can do in Afghanistan. It's over. The Taliban's there. They're there to stay. There's nothing else we can do to fix the problem in Afghanistan. It's over. No empire, no nation has ever been able to successfully occupy Afghanistan. We should have learned from the Soviets. If they failed miserably, of course we did too, but we spent 20 years there and $2 trillion plus interest. So there's going to be terrorist cells. Again, it's because of our foreign policy and what we're doing at the behest of the military-industrial complex and the big fossil fuel industries as well. So again, there's nothing else we can do. We've bombed everything. We've caused enough terror. See, the U.S. policy is we bomb, and we steal people's resources. Whereas other countries, look, China, they're just trying to build infrastructure. And who knows what's going to happen in the future. But in regards towards global superpowers, the United States can only play this game for so long of bombing other countries. Our actions will come back to haunt us. There's nothing else we can do in Afghanistan. It's over. Let's play the rest of the video.
This is a problem that's only limited to Afghanistan, and the proof of that is that Al-Qaeda, for a very long time, has been able to get refuge and actually have training camps and support in Pakistan, which is a problem that not only hasn't been addressed, but we've seen the United States continue to support Pakistan in spite of this known fact and reality. So this is a bigger issue here that really needs to be addressed.
Are you still a Democrat?
Yes.
And will continue to be, despite the criticism on a number of fronts?
Well, look, I've never been about party politics, Brett. I think you know that about me. I'm about putting country first. And the problems that we're seeing on a whole host of policy fronts is those in positions of power and leadership putting partisan politics, their own selfish desire for power.
Pause it. Look, born and raised on the south side of Chicago, I know this. If a group or somebody doesn't like me, I avoid them, and I'm not going to take that disrespect. I think we all can live like that, right? If some people don't like us or some people want to cause trouble with us, just forget it, right? And here's what I mean by this. The Democratic Party constantly smeared and turned Tulsi Gabbard into pariah. What loyalty do you have to the Democratic Party? They didn't give you anything in return. They constantly smeared you, they disrespected you, just like they did to Bernie Sanders, just like they did with the Squad. So the very fact that Tulsi Gabbard is saying, oh, I'm a Democrat, I'm still a Democrat. All I'm thinking is, my goodness, they kicked you in the mouth, they kicked you in the stomach, they throw you down to the ground, and yet you're going to still say you're part of their club. If they don't like you, what's in it for you to get back in their good graces? If they didn't like you then, if you stood out against them, what's the incentive, Tulsi? Seriously. Look, I've made it clear here, at least from my perspective, my point of view, that I'm not going to vote Republican, and I sure as hell am not going to vote Democrat during the midterm election cycle. There's nothing in it for me to support those two parties. So when people ask me, am I a Democrat, I'm going to say no. And if they're going to say I'm a Republican, no. I'm going to vote third parties. I'm going to support a third-party candidate, somebody who's independent, someone who's not connected to the Democratic and Republican establishment. So the very fact I hear these words coming from Tulsi, yes, I'm still a Democrat, I just can't help but think they disrespected you, and yet you still kiss their ring. They smeared you, and you still say praises to them. You owe them nothing. But if you need me to tell you that, then I guess you're in real trouble. Let's play the rest of the video.
Power ahead of the interests of the country, ahead of the interests of the people. And that's what I always try to do my very best in looking at different policies is we have to put the people and the interests of our country first.
Well, I want to ask you about this. You know, we're just getting the tip of the iceberg about this John Durham investigation, and there's been an indictment of a Hillary Clinton attorney, Mr. Sussman, about basically infusing this Russia narrative with the help of various media outlets and others. And it may go other places. We don't know. We're following it. But you have a unique perspective in that Hillary Clinton once called you a Russian asset. Just to remind people, take a listen.
They're also going to do third party again. And I'm not making any predictions, but I think they've got their eye on somebody who's currently in the Democratic primary and are grooming her to be the third party candidate. She's a favorite of the Russians. Yeah, she's a Russian asset. I mean, totally. And so they know they can't win without a third party candidate.
They went on to confirm that that was you that she was referring to.
Can we pause it here?
Your thoughts?
Wait, let's pause it here because I want to just defend Tulsi right here at this point. That was Hillary Clinton smearing, a Democrat Hillary Clinton, and there's numerous other Democrats that were smearing Tulsi Gabbard, calling her a Russian asset, calling her a Republican plan, calling her a third-party candidate, that somehow she's going to run third party during the 2020 presidential election cycle. None of that happened, and there were no ties connecting Tulsi Gabbard to Russia, the Republican Party, or even trying to start a third party. So that was one big smear. So I just want to make that very clear. That's probably the only caveat. Again, that's what a lot of our stories were for Hard Lens Media in regards to talking to Tulsi Gabbard and how she was getting smeared by the Democratic establishment and corporate media. Let's play the rest of this real quick.
It says we're starting to get this Durham investigation and what that means.
Confirms what I've known to be true, which is that you have the power elite, people like Hillary Clinton, those around her, working with the media, the deep state, in order to bring down the destruction and downfall of anyone that they deem to be a threat to their power. Outsiders, people like me, people like Donald Trump, doesn't matter, Democrat or Republican, if they identify, hey, this is someone who's not going to toe the line, this is someone who's not going to...
I think we're going to end this video here, but I just want to say right now, Donald Trump as an outsider. That man was never an outsider. He was always in the club. He was a parasite. He never implemented any policy. He survived off of Democratic and Republican presidential administrations' policies, as well as policies that were passed by the United States Senate and House. See, Donald Trump, he just took advantage of a system that was already corrupt. But he knew all the politicians. He was a Democrat before he became a Republican, and when he became a Republican, of course, he became friends with all the GOP donors and everything else like of that sort. He was never an outsider. He was part of the club. Donald Trump implemented neoliberal and neoconservative policies under his 4 years as president. So calling him an outsider, Tulsi, I mean, okay, that's a bridge too far for me. Now, I understand you were running as an outsider, but right now we're seeing this flip-flap and you making these questionable statements. Again, I think a final note for the story is you could respect somebody who's running for office or somebody that has a position of power or somebody that you respect who are saying things that you can agree with. But at the same time, too, you got to hold them to account for their actions and words. And what Tulsi Gabbard is saying is clearly wrong here. Trump and the establishment, they're not outsiders. There's no one that's in the establishment that's an outsider. And people who we elected, who we thought were outsiders, quickly then bent over backwards to be part of the same system. We saw it from AOC, we see it from Bernie Sanders, we see it from every kind of lawmaker out there at the state or federal level. So, again, who knows what Tulsi Gabbard is going to tweet out, but I think it's very important to note out that she's a private citizen. She's not in Congress. If people are triggered by Tulsi Gabbard or any of her policies, remember, our current elected officials can kind of remove her bills or any of her state or any of her policies that she did implement when she was in Congress. But she needs to be very clear on what she's saying. And shout out again to the Convo Couch, where they did reach out to Tulsi Gabbard to ask her to clarify some of her statements. They haven't heard anything back yet. I'm pretty sure if they do, they'll be sure to post a tweet out. So they've been doing fantastic work. Don't hero worship your politicians, folks. You're always going to be disappointed. And if we can we pull up that tweet from Jimmy Dore one last time, FaZe? I think it's just important just to really just read this out. Same, all heartbreakers for me. And again, retweeting out from Ron Placone. You know, we could scroll down to Ron Placone's tweet there real quick. I was wrong about Tulsi Gabbard. I was wrong about Bernie and the squad, AOC. I was wrong to think our electoral system could somehow be the solution. I know it will never be hashtag general strike. And that's what I'm for at this point in time. We need to do a general strike. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next story. Before we do, we got a couple of YouTube super chats. First, we got a YouTube super chat from Sterling Holmes. 1999 YouTube super chat, but thank you so much. Shout out to Hardlands Media and all the hard work you guys are doing. Shout out, and I'm glad y'all are creating a great studio, and it reveals to AOC. Remember, all politicians will lie to you for votes. Much love, Hardlands Media. Thank you so much for that support. We do appreciate it. We also got YouTube super chat from Mahmoud Maradi, $10. Tulsi is an Islamophobe. And we just installed a puppet in West Africa for the vast aluminum reserves, you know, spreading democracy. Yeah, taking other people's resources, which is not cool. Not cool at all. We also got another YouTube super chat from Lorana, $5. If we picked random people from the phone book, they would lead us better than these corrupt politicians, AOC included. Have to agree. We also got something on Rockfin as well. Let's go ahead and pull up the Rockfin. We got Roger Meadows, tip $2. I think she's showing her true colors now, political opportunist. She needs to talk to that vet who shouted down Bush Jr. Kit, I had a customer who was in the military told me he served with people who said that they were only to use it to launch political careers. Like I said, we're going to have to turn to ballot initiatives, state government, and building up financial funding networks via co-ops. We improve things at home. Military loses their bargaining chip to get people to join and less bodies to keep the military-industrial complex going. Scrolling down further, thank you again, Roger Meadows, for the $2 Rockfin tip. Inda Walton is visiting downstate New York to raise money. All the progressive state lawmakers and Cincy Nixon will be there. I will be going mostly to talk to all those state lawmakers who will be there in one place and advise them on getting public banking passed that we could do for cooperatives and getting the New York Health Care Act passed. Look, Roger Meadows, everyone, I have to say this for Roger Meadows. He's been doing fantastic work in regards towards really stepping up, progressive causes and issues. So, shout out to Fred Hampton Leftists for the hashtag General Strike movement that they're doing. If you haven't subscribed to their channel, be sure to do it. They're posting out a lot of great information. Also, my goodness, I will try and read it okay, so hold on. I'm going to be zooming in as close as I can to read this because we got 2 Streamlab chats. Oh, you have a mic now? Okay, all right, so we're going to, for the first time in the new studio, you're going to be hearing FaZe's voice. 105 on Streamlab from Sassy Raven. Thank you so much. I'm pretty sure I see Daniel dancing somewhere in the background. Thank you so much for the Streamlab tip. FaZe, what did Sassy Raven send us?
Sassy Raven says, my many thanks to your team for the hard work. Speak the truth and fight the power. More super chats coming their way slowly. Winky face. Thank you, Sassy Raven.
Well, yeah, seriously, thank you so much for the Streamlab chat. Again, Streamlab is better than YouTube super chats because Streamlab only takes 2%. If that were to be a YouTube super chat, YouTube would take 30% of that. So We do appreciate all the support that we're getting from our viewers and subscribers. And if you really want to help us out, please consider being a Patreon supporter as well. That link is in the description box below. Subscribe to us on Rockfin and Odyssey. I want to make something clear. If you can't help, if you can't be a donate or be a Patreon supporter, that's fine. We understand times are tough for a lot of people. Share our content on social media. Hit that ring bell notification. Like, comment, share, and subscribe. Join us in the chat. Shout out to all of our moderators that are keeping the peace. Shout out to Ayana, Fred Edward, E. Heller, Gamer for Life, Whitefeld DM, Reef Breland, and again, shout out to FaZe, who's been, again, manning the board and doing such great work. Again, people that are watching, your contributions, your support, or just being a viewer really helps out our studio, and we are humbled by all the support that we're getting. Plus, hey, finally, we got a real skyline, so isn't that awesome? By the way, Monday next week, we got a big announcement for some changes that we're going to be doing for the show. But with that being said, I think I filibustered enough. We got to move on now to our next segment. So, I got some 3 videos from Case Study QB, and here we have Morning Joe trying to figure out, okay, what's going to happen if this $3.5 trillion budget doesn't pass? This is the Democrats' Hail Mary at this point. We've talked about this on the show, that if the Democrats fail to do this, this will cost them a lot of seats, and this will be something that will handicap them during the midterm election cycle and potentially follow them in the 2024 presidential election cycle. So let's play this video about what's going on with this budgetary fight. And again, just a quick reminder, at the defense for the progressives that are in the United States House, they're not the ones that have been roadblocking. It's been corporate Democrats, moderate Democrats, blue dog Democrats that have been doing this. They are the ones that have been halting this this measly $3.5 trillion budget package. It should be higher, and the only blame I could put on progressives is that they were meek about this. They were quiet about this. They chose not to fight back. They chose not to bring the ruckus, and they're being walked all over. So let's hear from Morning Joe, and let's see him wrap his brain around the fact of what if this $3.5 trillion fails.
Let me ask you about a Times article that was that interviewed progressives and was published this morning, talking about the excruciating choices they would have to make if the bill was less than $3.5 trillion. Let's say it was that $2.5 trillion number that Jim Clyburn was talking about. It seems to me that for most Americans, we're just throwing around numbers here. We don't know what we get for $3.5 trillion. We don't know what we would get for $2.5 trillion. What would be lost if, and I kind of think this is where it's going, whether everybody wants it to go there or not, an infrastructure bill and a $2.5 trillion reconciliation package. But if that is where we all end up, what is lost, according to progressives, in that $3.5 to $2.5 trillion drop?
Well, as you know and read today, there's so many important programs in there on child care, on of course we talked about on climate, on health care. So the way I look at this is there's time horizons. So some of these programs that are here might be for a shorter period of time. But the bottom line is this: it's hard to know exactly what the end product is right now, and it's hard to negotiate here. That's exactly what we're doing right now. We have to keep working on. But the most important point, as you just said, is it will be an historic investment in our country, in families, in seniors. That's to me and the climate. That's to me what matters most, and we've got to keep working on it and not leave the table. And we're doing that right now. I was at meetings last night. We'll be at meetings all day today, getting that package ready. But first and foremost, as I said, Monday, let's all get behind this great bipartisan bill that we all agreed to vote on next week on infrastructure. Get that done. Huge win for the country, and then also get done separately this reconciliation package. So I'm optimistic about both, and we'll get there.
Okay, first, again, here's the problem with that statement. $3.5 trillion doesn't cover jack. We need, at the bare minimum, $10 trillion. At the bare minimum, $10 trillion to invest into our country's infrastructure. $10 trillion. For decades, the United States has chosen not to invest into our railways, to our water systems, to our bridges, to our roads, to everything. And as a consequence, because of climate change, a lot of our infrastructure is falling apart. And we are unable to really compete with other countries that are investing into their infrastructure. Just a quick side note, look, when I was visiting Japan last year, I was on their super trains, some of their, their bullet trains that go, again, really, really fast, and they're pretty awesome. But when I was speaking to my relatives when I was there, they were telling me that they're updating them because those trains are not moving fast enough. They're updating, in Japan, they were updating the bullet train, which again is light years ahead of anything that we have here in the city of Chicago. So the very fact that we're seeing other countries invest into their infrastructure says a lot about the United States and how, again, we're struggling to pass 3.5 trillion. Now, again, just a short reminder, originally, to quote Premier Jayapal, it was at 7 trillion. And to quote Senator Joe Manchin, the Democrat that's been causing all these problems, he was for 4 trillion. Now, right now, they're talking about negotiating even lower and lower, and supposedly the progressives in the House and Senate are going to fight back and stand their ground. I don't believe it, especially because of recent actions from AOC and a few other progressives for their vote for the Iron Dome. I don't think it's going to happen. And I will be impressed if they are able to successfully pull this off. But let's talk about first about this negotiation situation that the Democrats are doing in the United States Senate and House. And again, if they can't get this thing passed, it will come back to haunt them. Let's play this next video from Case Study QB. Be sure to follow him on Twitter, support his YouTube channels, follow him on Odyssey, and check out the People's Gauntlet. Let's play this video.
Problem is, Chris, we've been having a fake negotiation. We've been into this for months and months and months. And at this point, you would think that if you were on the other side of Bernie or whatever, you would have a proposal. Right. And yet, the surprising thing from Manchin or Sinema is there is no proposal. You're negotiating with the shadow. And it's very hard to have a quote-unquote compromise when progressives are both advertising the North Star, where we need to go, and then offering the compromise, and yet begging, what is your alternative to this? What is it? And to this point, we've been talking about this for months. They cannot offer a specific alternative.
That is a really good point, because anyone who's ever been through a negotiation, it goes like this. There's an offer, there's a counter. There's an offer, there's a counter. You need a counter. And I've been in negotiations where you're waiting on the counter and it drives you nuts. Where's the counter? Where's the counter? There's no, I mean, that's the thing. Manchin's counter is a strategic pause. Or maybe we don't do anything at all, but if he, maybe he's doing this privately. But if Manchin and Sinema have a counter, you're right. They should say what the counter is.
Yeah, I mean, I face this every night with my children. It's kind of like debating with children. Like, if you start with here's what you should eat for dinner, maybe carrots and broccoli. And how about mac and cheese? How about spaghetti and meatballs? They say, no, no, no. I need you to work with me. You can't go to bed hungry. It's like, got to give me something to work with. And I feel like we're dealing with kids here. You got to put something on the table. At least get to yes. This is a team sport. Legislating at this juncture right now is a team sport. And I think Senator Sanders realizes it. He's making compromises. Pramila Jayapal's making compromises. Yep. Where the heck are people wanting to, in good faith, offer a compromise that gets to yes?
Here's the key thing about the team sport. The lesson I think I've learned in analyzing this, and you've lived it, is you can't outrun the wave. Meaning, you can't distinguish yourself so much as a member, frontline member, that you're going to survive if it's not a good election year. Right. Right? Like, you're bound to the Democratic Party and its fate either way.
Yeah, but here's the thing, though. I've taken tough votes.
Right.
This isn't hard.
Okay. Let's actually address this too with the actions that we're seeing from Blue Dog Democrats in the House, as well as the actions of Senator Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin. What do they want? Well, what we do know is that they want to lower the 3.5 trillion to something either 1.5 trillion or have the number in the billions. They want to lower it down. We do know that the Biden-Harris administration have been inviting Senator Sinema and Senator Joe Manchin to the White House. They're the ones that have a seat at the table, and what they're saying behind closed doors, who knows? But there's probably something in it for them. There's always something in it for the Blue Dog Democrats, so the moderate Democrats, and yet it's the progressives right now that, again, look, I'm glad that they're kind of sort of fighting back, but this is a very interesting point. We would expect this kind of hostility and action from the GOP, but it's coming, again, from members within the Democratic Party. And perhaps this is their excuse of saying we can't get anything done, that's why you should vote for more Democrats. But we can't afford for this inaction from the Democratic Party. And it's 3.5 trillion, it's not enough. Do I want to see the Democrats succeed with this 3.5 trillion? If the progressives actually are able to successfully pull up a fight, I would be impressed. I would like to see that, but I know it's not enough. And in the long run, if this is how things are going to be, if this is how the Democrats are going to be governing over us, in a what-if scenario, if they're able to get more seats in the midterms and they still can't get anything done, what does that say to us about the 2024 presidential election cycle? But hold on, we got another video from Case Study QB. Let's pull that video up.
Here's the thing, though. I've taken tough votes.
Right.
This isn't hard.
Right.
These are not tough votes. They're arguing over taxes. I want a member of the Democratic Party to stand up and say that they want a venture capitalist to pay lower tax rates than teachers, cops, firemen, or anyone else in the working class. Who's for that? I do not understand anymore what they're arguing about. Yeah. It's time for them to put their heads down, remember that the Democrats, the party of the New Deal, the party of working people, get this thing done.
Faz Shakir and Max Rose.
Here's the
All
thing,
right, let's
though.
pause it. Let's pause it right there. Let's be very clear. No matter what happens, whether this $3.5 trillion budget passes or fails, it's on the Democrats. But there's other issues at hand. Millions of Americans are being evicted from their homes. Millions more are still waiting to be evicted from their homes because, again, the United States government is basically letting people out there in the wilderness. They've abandoned them, especially in 2020. The American people deserve a continuous UBI. We deserve a Federal Jobs Guarantee Act. We deserve Medicare for all. We deserve student debt forgiveness, medical debt forgiveness. Already, millennials, college students, have $1 trillion in debt right now. We need to do debt forgiveness. But our lawmakers, especially the progressive ones, that ran on a lot of these progressive policies that we agree with, they haven't gotten anything from this administration. By constantly compromising, a lot of their voters and constituents are still waiting for some kind of relief. This is why we need to do a general strike. This back and forth that we're seeing within the Democratic Party is evidence enough. You can't reform a sick party. The Democrats are the Washington Generals, and they're losing to, I guess, what? The Republicans are the Harlem Globetrotters? What a terrible analogy, but this is what we're seeing firsthand. I would expect maybe in a different reality, the GOP to constantly be the main antagonist towards this $3.5 trillion budget. But maybe in that other reality, perhaps people have common sense because let's face it, we need to invest into our country. Trillions upon trillions of dollars into our infrastructure, into our people. But the Democrats are the ones playing this back and forth game, and it shows weakness in the Biden-Harris administration because they can't get their party together. The midterms will be very entertaining to watch. And brace yourself for the propaganda that will be shoved down our throats because you're going to have your cul-de-sac progressives, your blue checkmark people, and your vote blue no matter who saying we got to vote Democrat because, oh no, look out for the Republicans. The Democrats' actions since Biden was elected as president has left an open door for the GOP to implement or use a lot of political ammunition against the Democratic Party. We need to start talking about building infrastructure for a third party, and we need to definitely talk about building a continuous infrastructure for a general strike because we will not get anything from the Democrats or the Republicans if they keep on playing this back and forth game with us. Millions of Americans are suffering, and our lawmakers are turning a blind eye to it. This is evidence. This is a fact. We are being left to fend for ourselves, and it's not right. With that being said, we're going to move on now to our next segment. Before we do we have anything on Rockfin or Odyssey phase? I just want to just make sure we got all that set up for our wonderful viewers so we can acknowledge the people that are helping us out and supporting us on our network. By the way, again, tonight, 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Chicago Corner will be live. It's going to be a very great show. I've been seeing the show notes already. Jerry and E. Heller will be there, so that's going to be entertaining to watch. I'm guessing we got a no on that. All right, fantastic. All right, so I recently saw this on Twitter, and I have a problem with lawmakers, especially being in their twilight years in positions of power. That goes for Ice Cream Nancy, Joe 30330, Chucky Boy Schumer, Lindsey Graham Cracker, Turtle Boy Mitch McConnell, and the rest of these senior citizens that have been in power for decades. And so we got this lawmaker. He's a Republican. He's 88 years old. Again, I'm going to say it for people in the background. He's 88 years old. What is he going to do? What more can he do? This just goes to show, again, how corrupt all these politicians are. Just like Dianne Feinstein. She's 91 years old. What more can you do? I understand that you like all those donations from your corporate donors, and that's your big golden meal ticket, and you got gold-plated healthcare. But my goodness, there has to be term limits. This is evidence for me, furthermore, for more term limits, because it's not only the Democrats that are doing this, it's the Republican lawmakers that are doing this as well. So Grassley will be seeking re-election, boosting the GOP's majority hopes. So This is an article from Politico. The waiting game for Chuck Grassley is over. He's running for re-election. The Iowa Republican senator announced on Twitter Friday morning he'll run for an 8th term. 8 terms? Why? 8 terms! What more can you do? You already showed us that you don't care. What, your next election cycle you just wanted us to take a sloppy dump on the Senate floor? Because that's probably most of these old senile politicians are probably doing at this point. Crapping their pants, all the while the rest of us are starving. Look, there's got to be an age limit for these politicians, and there goddamn well has to be a term limit too. 88 years old. Is he all there? Probably not. He's probably got a lot of handlers taking care of him. It just sickens me that we have this system. 8 terms. 8 terms. 8 terms. This is a United States Senator in the Republican Party, 88 years old. What more can he do? He's from a different time, has a different mindset. A lot of these old politicians pride themselves on the fact that they don't have a smartphone or know how to use the goddamn internet. We need elected officials that, one, definitely are not as corrupt as this, but also at the same time, too, that are aware of the changing environment that we are living in. These lawmakers don't give a damn, especially these politicians that are 80, 90 years old. So, again, continuing on, this move makes it more likely the GOP can keep control of his seat in next year's midterm elections. Though Iowa has trended red in recent years and Grassley has turned 88 this month, Republican leaders have nonetheless pressed him to seek re-election amid their broader efforts to claim the Senate majority next year. Grassley delivered his news in a tweet at 4 a.m. Central Daylight Time, emphasizing his exercise regime and early wake-up time. Here's a quote from it. Oh, wow, it's so heartful. It's 4 a.m. in Iowa, so I'm running. I do that 6 days a week. Before I start the day, I want you to know that I want you to know what Barbara and I have decided. I'm running for re-election. A lot more to do for Iowa. Yeah, okay, buddy. All right, whatever. Again, these politicians and their ego. Grassley ramped to a 7th term in 2016 by 25 points and will face former Democratic Representative Abby Fechner in next year's general election. If Grassley had retired, Republicans could have faced a messy primary in the race to replace him. Fechner said she won't be deterred by Grassley staying in the race. I won't back down and will fight every day in this race to hold Senator Grassley accountable for becoming just another D.C. politician who can't let go of power and turn his back on families like mine, she said in a statement. The plain-spoken Grassley is a fixture of the Senate. He presided over the Senate Judiciary Committee during Republicans' blockade of former President Barack Obama's Supreme Court nominee, Merrick Garland, as well as the confirmation of former President Donald Trump's nominee, Brett Kavanaugh, who faced accusations of sexual assault during his committee hearings. Grassley also served in the line of presidential succession as the most senior GOP senator when Trump was president. He is currently the ranking member of the Senate Judiciary Committee. Term limits, 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 term limits. Oh, and by the way, age limits at this point. Now, this isn't anything against anyone that's a senior citizen, but 88 years old, 90 years old, 95 years old. Some of our lawmakers are that age. They should be in a home, eating ham or counting trucks. I don't know. Doing something. Doing something, but for God's sakes. The richest country in the world. We have lawmakers from a different time dictating policy over millions of Americans that right now don't know how to make ends meet because our government abandoned us. They abandoned us in 2020, and they're sure as hell abandoning us now. We have evictions happening. We have a debt crisis happening. We have, again, a corrupt system where anybody can buy a lawmaker. What more can this 88-year-old politician do that hasn't been done already? He should sail off in the sunset, and that's it. But if you're not angry about this, you should be, because there's more Republican lawmakers like him in the United States Senate and House, and there's Democratic lawmakers like him as well. If we're going to fight for a better future, this whole system has to be rooted out. There's no reforming the DNC, and there's no reforming the RNC. It's a sick club run by a bunch of old people that, for far too long, their policies and their actions have gone unaccounted for. They need to retire. They need to go. And that's that. No debate. That being said, I want to thank all of you for joining me for this live stream. Heartlands Media is live every Monday through Friday at 5 p.m. Central Standard Time on YouTube, Odyssey, and Rockfin. Again, tonight at 7:30 p.m. Central Standard Time, Chicago Corner will be live. And in this new studio, we are asking for help. So if you do want to be a Patreon supporter, that link to it is in the description box below. We're working on building a community center. We're working on building a radio station. We're working on a lot of different projects here. And I'm seeing right now in the chat that we got a lot of people joining us. We got 207 people. One last time for FaZe and Daniel, give a thumbs up for them because they've been working their butts off, making the studio, this radio station happen. Lainey, Jerry, and E. Heller have also been working on the radio station. They've been putting a lot of work. So to our viewing audience, for me, do a favor for me. Give a thumbs up to all the hard work that they're doing. Be sure to like, comment, share, and subscribe. Share our content on social media. If you can't be a Patreon supporter, share our content on social media on Facebook, Instagram, and Twitter. We do appreciate all the support that we're getting from all of our viewers and subscribers because without you, this new studio would not exist. Shout out to all of our moderators, again, who are keeping the peace. And again, now more than ever, we have to fight for that better future. My name is Kit. Have a wonderful weekend and take care.